Hello my loves, continue to update new stories on Reddit, and don't forget if you like it, please subscribe and like it. Now let's start new stories. Story: Spouse is a chronic complainer. He does not see it this way. What is normal? I'm 33 years old. Spouse is 31 years old. Spouse complains about lack of sleep constantly. He's a chronic complainer, but doesn't see it this way. What is normal? For context, we have an almost 3-year-old and my husband works from home. Since our child has been born, he's been the primary caretaker because I leave to a medical office Monday through Friday for work and am home by 4 p.m. to take over. He works overnight. He absolutely refuses outside help even now with his mom who's recently moved into town. He essentially has to function off of at best 3 to 6 hours of broken up sleep spread across pre-shift and post-shift. I absolutely get it. I've acknowledged how crappy this schedule is and continue to make effort to provide him relief here and there, like leaving early from work, taking PTO, etc. And genuinely, when I know for a fact he didn't sleep well or had a terrible day where he has to function off of the bare minimum, I don't care if he says a complaint or two about being exhausted. However, this is an everyday thing. It is the theme of our conversation 80% of the time. If it's bath time or having family time, it's an ever-revolving wheel of very negative ick about grocery shopping. I'm exhausted. And usually his complaints tie to our child. He woke up too early this morning and I'm too exhausted, then rants about how he doesn't know how he's going to function for work. Or it's I couldn't sleep well because of their tantrum. The big picture here is that the reason why he's not getting enough sleep is because of our child's schedule. Just like any parent. But to complain about it nearly all day and all night long. Last winter he spent the entire 3 months complaining on how cold it was, begging every night for the summer to get here. He complained nearly every single day and night how it affected his back, and he'd at least once a day make a comment about praying to the God for summer to get here. We live in a southern state, so once it got here it was hot. What does he end up doing? Complains every day how hot it is. How miserable he is. How he can't work in the garage well because of how hot it gets in there. He works in the garage to take meetings so he doesn't wake up our child, and now I've had a bad taste in my mouth because, didn't you ask for this? He's also extremely unpleasant to be around in the state where he's in his complaining mode. I want to know, am I just being insensitive? He says that his entire childhood family did this. They'd just complain to each other as if it was a fun pastime hobby or something. In my household growing up, it was seen extremely negatively. You'd come off ungrateful, as a non-doer, and nut up shut up type household. I need some desperate insight. I have tried the shoulder or solution. His answer to that was he never wants a solution. He just wants to complain. Is chronic complaining totally normal? Again. He doesn't even use the word complaining. He sees it as a fun pastime and a way to be supported. Story: I feel like my best friend, 21M, is jealous of my GF, 21F, and I don't know if I should keep being friends with him. Hello everyone, I am 21 years old, have a best friend 21 years old, and we have been friends since high school, so for about 5 years. He has gone to a different country, but he still visits pretty often, so we get to see each other every 2 to 3 months. My friend is gay, and I am a straight man. At the same time, I have a girlfriend 21 years old who I have been dating for 3 years. He doesn't really support our relationship because he thinks that since I started dating her we don't really spend time. Which isn't exactly true, but it did play some sort of role. We obviously used to spend more time together when we went to school every day and had nothing to do, versus now would I have a relationship and I live with my GF, and also I have a full-time job which takes most of my day. I never thought that he was jealous of my girlfriend, but lately when I took a deeper look into his behavior, I noticed that he is acting sort of strange. Firstly, he dislikes my girlfriend even though she did nothing to him. In fact, she even baked cinnamon rolls for him once when he came over to our flat. After that, he did not even say thank you to her, which sort of offended me. Secondly, when I told him that I went on a trip for my GF's birthday, he didn't seem happy for me at all. He did not ask me how it was, all he said was that he wanted to go on a trip with me and asked me why I didn't go with him instead. I honestly was surprised by his reaction because I wouldn't have reacted this way to my friend. Thirdly, he often makes remarks about my body and jokingly insinuates that I should break up with my GF. When I confronted him about all of this, He said that he has no problem with my GF, but he thinks that I don't spend enough time with him. I don't know what to think of these, but he is the only friend I have in the city, which makes me feel even more alone. I feel like he doesn't value me as a friend and he has weird motives towards me. My best friend of 5 years is acting strange towards me and my relationship and seems like he is jealous of my girlfriend. Story: my 27M partner, 26F, keeps threatening our relationship and lashing out. How do we address it? I am 27 years old, have been with my partner 26 years old for over a year now. The first time we met, we clicked instantly. We have the same sense of humor, have the same hobbies, and we share similar life goals. She is enthusiastic, wholesome, charismatic, the list could go on. I love her dearly, and she makes me happier than anyone else ever has. My parents and friends love her too. Everyone in my life is supportive of our relationship and are happy for us. In all honesty, I am the happiest version of myself. But the last 6 months have been going downhill. We have been getting into arguments. The topics of the arguments are normal and nothing too serious, but the issue lies in how we argue. When we have an argument, she loses her temper. She loses track of the goal and she stops being constructive and cooperative with me. She lashes out at me and says things in the heat of the moment just to harm me or our relationship. Her lashing out isn't limited to when we fight either. She has anxiety and panics sometimes. For example, we were late to the airport recently and she started getting nervous, and while I wasn't doing anything wrong or anything to upset her, it's unavoidable for me to be in the firing line when she lashes out because she's panicked. In the last 6 months, when we've had arguments, there have been a handful of times when she's threatened our relationship. I don't believe she threatens our relationship in a manipulative or controlling way in order to get what she wants. I believe she does it because she goes into self-destruct mode. No matter the reason, I told her that is unacceptable. I seriously talked to her about this back in March and told her how it makes me feel and that she can't do it. She agreed at the time. However, she threatened the relationship again in May. After then, we had a more serious conversation about how I would have no choice but to break up with her if she kept threatening our relationship. I also said she needs to stop lashing out at me. I explained my reasoning to her, and she totally agreed and apologized after she had calmed down. However, lo and behold, last weekend, she threatened our relationship again. Now, I don't know what to do. I told her I would break up with her if she did it again. What kind of precedent would I set if I didn't follow through? I love her so much, but logically I don't see how I can spend my life with someone who acts like this. I don't think we can disagree in a mature manner. I feel like I'm constantly in the firing line. I feel like we are not a team. For all the laughter, joy and happiness we have together, it's always in the moment. I recognize I might be in denial about the future, and that I'm clinging on the happy moments and dissociating from the bad moments. Our relationship feels volatile and insecure. I don't know how I can build a future with someone who makes me feel like we're on the rocks every couple of months. I've also now lost my optimism and have no faith that she will change. She brings me happiness, but she doesn't bring me peace and security. I don't see how I can build a future with someone without peace and security. But, having said all of this, 90% of the time when we're not fighting, I am the happiest version of myself. That is because of her, and it breaks my heart having to leave her. Surely, turning your back on someone you love and someone that makes you happy can't be the answer. I'm stunned with indecision at the moment. Does anyone know how to address this in a healthy way? I'd really appreciate any advice. I told my partner we would break up if she threatened our relationship again. Now she has. I don't want to break up. Story: how to bond with my boyfriend's 32M friends, including his ex, without letting it affect our relationship. My boyfriend, 32 years old, and I am 29 years old, have been together for about a year and recently moved in together. He's been connecting with his friends after a year and a half of distancing due to mental health issues. One of his friends is his ex-girlfriend, who had a toxic end to their relationship. She recently sent him an emotional email, and I suspect she might still have feelings for him, which makes me uncomfortable. He reassured me there's nothing to worry about, but I want advice on how to bond with his friends and navigate this situation without letting it affect our relationship. I'm 29 years old and my boyfriend is 32 years old. We started to date sometime around this month last year. Found each other on a South Asian dating app. We had a fair share of ups and few downs, but we love each other to bits. loyal to each other, and we want to start a life together. We recently moved in together as well, and our parents are supportive of this. My boyfriend was not doing okay mentally for quite some time and distanced himself from his friends for about a year and a half. Completely absent without leave. They tried reaching out but gave him space. One of the persons from the friend group was his ex-girlfriend. They dated for about 2 years. It got really toxic towards the end from what he told me, since she started to force him into marriage very early on during the relationship as she was 3 to 4 years older to him. Although he liked her, he wasn't ready for a lifetime commitment, especially if it was that forced. He tried to tell her, but she never really understood, would also sometimes cry about her ex whilst living with him. She couldn't secure a job, so no financial support to pay rent, so she asked to live with him even after he decided to part ways with her. He agreed since it was a tough time for everyone. Some forms of intimacy continued, but he expressed the discomfort he was facing that this was happening and that it's not good for either of their mental state if they decided to part ways. She then moved out, but reached out to him to give it another chance, and this time with no pressure of marriage. Skip. She now is married to a dude who she found through a dating app. We also recently met his friends, after he broke 1 year of long-lost silence with them. Everyone's extremely happy to see him and angry for ghosting. Basically everyone expressed happiness because they were meeting me for the first time, but I didn't see any kind of emotions from his ex-GF who was also present there with her husband. She only spoke about food with me, didn't try to get to know me at all. She just asked him how he was. Basically very minimal talks and emotions. Apparently, just a year back, she sent him another huge email, expressing how she terribly missed him, how she missed his laughter and late-night talks, missed having him in his life. That he should stop ghosting her and talk and still be great best friends with her, how they used to be. I can't help but think that she still has feelings for him, and that is somehow not sitting very well with me. Especially now that we'll be hanging out with the gang often. I don't want to let this affect anything because he really needs his friends, and so do I need this social connection. I have no complaints about my BF. He's the greenest flag out there. He is extremely honest about everything, and I expressed this to him. He saw where I was coming from and rest assured me that we have no control over this and to not let this affect me. I will try to heed to that, but I just want to know if I'm crazy to think this about her. Story: thinking of stepping away from a 5-year friendship after she let her boyfriend come between us. My 30 years old friend Alice, 28 years old, and I initially bonded over shared trauma. Last year I stopped drinking, smoking due to the impact on my mental health. I'll have the occasional drink or edible, but my social life no longer revolves around getting intoxicated. Alice still binge drinks socially, gets high every day. When I turn down her offers to smoke or drink, she is visibly disappointed, repeatedly asking if I'm sure. Although my sobriety isn't a problem with my other friends, I sometimes cave to pressure from her. Recently I hosted Alice and her partner David for dinner. I texted her a few days prior explaining I was dealing with some family issues, not in the right headspace to entertain, suggesting we go out to eat instead. She talked me into hosting anyway, saying how excited she was, promising to make it stress-free for me. Spoiler alert, it was not stress-free at all. My partner had to leave early, so the three of us hung out in my living room afterwards. Despite my grief over said family troubles, I tried to put on a brave face. Alice produced a joint, I accepted, hoping it might relax me. For the next 30 minutes, I could feel myself talking too much about our upcoming trip for my 30th. David, who is very shy, didn't say much. At one point he returned from the bathroom saying he felt ill, was going home. I offered him my bedroom to lie down, but he insisted on leaving. Alice stayed and we went out dancing. 2 days later, Alice revealed David was hurt I had ignored him, asked what I had against him. I was confused because I recalled interacting with David that night. I told her the truth, that I hadn't meant to snub him. If I was less than socially adept, it was due to the weed. She kept repeating that I had ignored him. I asked for examples, but all she could say was that the conversation wasn't inclusive of him. I asked why she didn't do more to include him in the conversation then. She got upset, said I was trying to minimize my behavior and evade accountability. For the sake of our friendship, I agreed to apologize to him directly. She told me not to, as he wasn't ready. I was confused, but left it alone. She spent my birthday trip getting wasted at every opportunity. In a moment of sobriety, she again pressed me to come clean about why I ignored David. I got upset because I'd already told her the truth. She dropped it. The next day she gave me the silent treatment, then bought a bottle of tequila to drink on an empty stomach, while on psych meds. I confronted her. Cue the same argument. I decided to leave, enjoy the rest of my trip solo. I accepted her apology but expressed concerns about her drinking, which offended her. Since then we've had other conflicts that have left me emotionally exhausted. I've had to fight tooth, nail to assert my boundaries. After our latest fight, she is eager to mend things, but I'm starting to think this friendship isn't healthy. I hate to throw away 5 years of friendship, but I feel I need to protect my peace. After my best friend accused me of ignoring her boyfriend, subsequently ruined my 30th birthday trip, I am having trouble trusting her, think it may be time to step away from the friendship altogether. Story: my husband told me he also loves someone else. My husband, Grant, 33 male, and I, 30 female, have been together for 12 years, married 3. We originally were living in my home state but moved to his after his parents' health started to take a decline. We've been living here for several years now. In that time I met a girl, 26 female, at work about 3 years into us moving, and after bringing her around me, my husband and her were all friends. We had a period where we didn't talk with her for maybe 2 years due to issues in our relationship with how my work was going, and her with a toxic friend group. TBF, we should have stayed and helped her out, but my husband and I were having a tough time barely seeing each other. Eventually we reconnected at the beginning of the year, and we would bring her out of her house to hang out and let her decompress from home life. A few months ago I noticed Grant was a lot more silent than normal, barely texting when we were at work and being somewhat physically distant. I eventually asked him what was wrong, and he said he was going through some mental issues. We both are diagnosed depressed, so I thought it stemmed from that. We made up, but there's still a very subtle hint of tension. When hanging or chatting in person, Grant is reserved, not as much in chat but definitely in person. I noticed in our friend chat he was the one more likely to initiate conversation than when it was just us, and I thought he was just trying to help keep her occupied. He initiated hangouts, which was weird because we were both home buddies. It started to nag at me when we would all hang out, and he would buy things for her too. I'm the one in the friend work group that people go to for advice, so I tend to pick up on things more than others, and about a month ago it sort of dawned on me that there was more than friendship there, at least from him. Recently, Grant was even more in his thoughts, and it was concerning me. I eventually got him to start talking, and at first he was very vague, and kept insisting he loved me. I didn't doubt that, but I had to guess he had feelings for someone, and guess again it was our friend. My heart sank when he acknowledged it, because it seemed like at first he couldn't admit it to himself. He eventually told me that he sort of figured it out when I confronted him about the distance, and had been battling with himself on how to tell me. He did insist he did not love me less, but loves her the same as me. I'll be honest, I'm probably still in shock and I'm not sure how to process. I feel like I should have been mad when he told me, but I can't bring myself to be. I'm not mad at her because she doesn't know. She's also in a relationship of her own and has never really expressed interest in anybody but the person she's with. And I understand people can love differently and the same for different people. We both just didn't think we would have to deal with this. I'm just not sure how to proceed. This man is the love of my life, and I don't think I can feel the same way I do for him as someone else. Leaving him isn't an option for me. I just need a way to navigate this. Story: I, at 28F, have been seeing my ex, 33M, and don't know if I should break it off or try to fix things. Ex 38 years old and I am 28 years old were in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful, and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me, and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that his physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Does any of this stand a chance? I feel insane even asking this, but at the end of the day I love this man. Any advice, words of wisdom or commisery is welcomed. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story: should I break up with my girlfriend? Hey, so this is complicated, but I will try to keep it simple. I am 27 years old and about 3 months ago I met 27 years old a girl and we hit it off right away. For some background, she is one of the first real relationships I ever had and I am used to being alone and mostly just keeping to myself. I live with my mom and enjoy video games, anime, and all things nerdy, so I'm that type of guy. Needless to say, this is all new to me, and she also has 2 kids and an ex-husband, all of which she was upfront with me about. For the first few months everything was amazing, especially the S word. We were so passionate and I grew to really care for her and her kids, who in retrospect I may have met too early on. Anyway, I got sick recently and she has been going through a lot too planning this party for her and her family. She texted me today saying that she wanted space and is going through a lot, and I assumed that meant I could get out of driving the hour and a half to her house to go to the family party, and sadly that made me happy. The reason I say sadly that made me happy is because I feel guilty and bad that I was happy I had a chance to bail on that. Anyway, we had a long conversation tonight and I kinda told her I feel like we are rushing and I'm not ready for the commitment of everything due to some of the stuff I said in the first paragraph, how I am used to being a loner homebody. But she has been nothing but amazing and nice to me, and even helped me come out of my shell a bit. Even still, I can't help but think that eventually I will want to break up because someday she will want to move in together and have me take a big responsibility role with the kids, and I don't know if I will ever be ready for it. I expressed the exact paragraph above pretty much word for word to her, and she will says she wants to stay together and to not worry about the future and live in the moment. I tried to get her to break up with me, I guess, by making it clear I wasn't sure if we were going to last forever and wasn't ready for a long-term commitment. She has kids and other drama. She instead said she loves me and wants us to work out, making me think she is a prize and it would be selfish and I would regret it if we broke up, because the only reason I want to is just so I can go back to gaming all the time and doing whatever the hell I want. And I don't think that's a good enough reason, because overall she really does care about me, and I know for a fact a girl like that is hard to find because she is amazing, so I may regret it later if I end things. Story: I, 38 am so exhausted, depressed, and beat down from never feeling attractive enough, even to my wife, 38F. How can I beat this feeling? I'm 38 years old, around 175 pounds, and right around 6 feet tall. I run and lift fairly regularly, and eat relatively healthy. I feel like maybe I could work on my midsection a little more, but I'm still in light athletic shape. I feel like I'm pretty average and plain in the face and maybe look a little young for my age. In the last few years I've really invested time and money in skincare and think it has paid off. I get fairly expensive haircuts every month or two to keep looking nice. And yet after all of that I am still so insecure about my appearance. I look in the mirror and I just never like what I see. No matter how much I work out, no matter how well I dress, no matter how much time I spend with different hair and skincare products, I still feel like there's just something about me that's off, and still never good enough. Like I just look a little goofy and just a little out of the ordinary, as if there's a little something unexplainable that puts me into some weird territory. Part of what makes me think this is that I don't feel like there's ever any external cues to let me know that all of my work in taking care of myself is paying off. My wife doesn't pay me that much attention. I never ever get compliments from anyone on how I dress or how much working out has paid off. When I am by myself in public, women never give me a second glance. There's just so much that tells me that I am just not enough when it comes to this. I know that a lot of people will say that attractiveness comes from other things as well. How funny a person is, how charismatic they are, stuff like that. I am feeling fairly confident about that too. I am a little shy and introverted until I get to know someone, but after that I feel fairly sure that I am charming and funny and caring for people. I just don't get it. I wish there was anything at all to tell me that I had some worth in terms of my appearance. Not having anything to go on makes me doubt myself and even hate myself at times. I know that things like this are supposed to come from within, but I feel like if I am only ever telling myself that and no one outside of my own biases ever tells me anything, it's just a delusion on my part. Story: my brother is abusing drugs and breaking the law. I don't know what to do. Hello, I am 23 years old. My brother, 18 years old, was just caught by me and my parents doing hard drugs yesterday right after a cop came to our house to give him a warning because he got caught violating his restraining order by bringing an underage girl into the house. He started acting weird 6 months ago when he met a new friend group. My parents gifted him a car when he turned 18 and he crashed it, making it undrivable. He then started using my mom's car, which he then totaled, and then finally he stole my dad's brand new Tesla in the middle of the night with a bunch of underage kids and his friend Billy. Turns out he's the supplier and drove it into a tree, totaling it. Since then he was been sneaking people into the house, mostly an underage girl 15 years old who's my dad's best friend's daughter, which he claims he's in love with. The family put a restraining order on my brother so they wouldn't contact each other, but they still do, and he got caught by the cops because she snuck into the house to bring my brother drugs. I discovered this because he left his Snapchat open on his computer after we caught him with the hard drugs. Ever since the first accident I had been begging my parents to give him consequences for his actions, but they continued to ignore my pleas until the final car was smashed. Since then, we have been arming the house with Ring cameras, sensors and alarms. As of now my dad has probably spent almost $1,000 on new security alone. My parents are saying they want to section my brother Section 35 Massachusetts, but I really hope they actually put him in rehab or inpatient. I hope they actually go through with it. My brother was a quiet, sweet, and sensitive person with not a lot of friends before this happened, and now it's like talking to a zombie who won't stop lying. I don't know what to do with myself. I find myself getting angrier and angrier at him and I feel guilty. He won't stop lying about everything with sometimes a shit-eating grin. Last night he jumped out of an 8-foot window in the middle of the night. I can't get a night's rest without an alarm going off, and am having extreme anxiety and paranoia. I don't know how involved I should be in this. I feel like a parent at times. I don't know how I should be reacting/treating my brother. I want to move out, but I feel bad leaving my little sister, 13 years old, to deal with this alone, and my dad also has been saying he doesn't want me to. I really do want to leave, but I don't know if it's the right thing to do. My brother is abusing drugs, smashing cars, messing with underage girls, and I don't know what to do. Story: am I overreacting that my boyfriend doesn't propose to me? Me, 31 years old, and my partner, 31 years old, are together for 7 years now, and we just bought our very first house last week. We have been together since we were 24 and we are not engaged, and I don't know if he ever want to propose because he's not really talking about it. Even when I ask him we just arguing about it, so I never thought about marriage when I was younger, but then when we both turned like 26 to 27 I started to show interest about it, and at the same time everybody around us, all our friends got engaged, had wedding, expected their first child, etc. And I mentioned him that I want to get engaged before I turn 30. He never said anything. And I just kept repeating myself and he just kept saying nothing. I felt guilty and bad for mentioning and saying things like this to him because I didn't want to put pressure on him, but at the same time I wanted to know his thoughts and also let him know what I want. We were already saving up for deposit to buy a house, and once he said, that after we have the house we want he can buy a nice ring and propose, but right now he doesn't have £5,000 to spend on a ring. I already knew what ring I want and that doesn't cost that much, and also I would never want him to buy me such an expensive ring anyway. So I told him this, and I sent him the rings I like, and I told him he can choose which one he wants to propose with. I just wanted him to know I don't expect anything expensive, I just want to see that he is serious too, just like me. His answer was that if he wouldn't be serious he would not buy a house with me. This was like 2 years ago. Since that, every holiday we go on, every night out together, every birthday, every family events we go together, I think he'll do it, but nothing. People around us keep questioning him about it and he just says, oh, our plan is to buy a house first and then I can afford a ring, but it's not our plan, just his. But it's awkward for me and it makes me angry because I already told him I don't want expensive ring and I wanted to get engaged before 30. Every time we talk about this we just arguing. He gets offended because I say what I think and what I feel and then he doesn't really speaks to me for days. I just realized that we don't want the same things from life and it makes me sad. I'm 31 already and I don't want to say yes anymore to him because I feel he just ruined everything. I don't know what to do anymore because I can't have a serious conversation with him about this, and even if I would have one I feel nothing would change. I don't want to propose to him, that's just not me, and he would not want that either. I think the communication between us is very, very bad and I don't know how to fix it because I know if I mention this he'll not talk to me. I just don't want to wait anymore and I don't want to say yes anymore. And I hate this feeling. Even when I ask him we just arguing about it. Story, I, at 28F, don't know how to mend my relationship with my ex, 33M. Ex 33 years old and I am 28 years old were in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Any advice on how to leave, get over this, or even fix this is encouraged. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story, my 29F boyfriend, 28M, sexted another girl when we exclusive, but not dating. How can I move forward from this? My boyfriend Harry, 28 years old, and I am 29 years old, matched on Hinge in February, met in March, and started dating in May. On our second date, I asked him when was the last time he slept with someone else and he said 2 weeks. I had a friends with benefits Jake and I slept with him the morning I met Harry. I told Harry this because I didn't want to lie about it. Harry was visibly upset when I told him this, and when I told my friends later, they all agreed I should have lied about it. The woman Harry slept with before me was a 40-year-old friends with benefits Melissa that he met in 2023. I'm not sure how often they saw each other, but from how he describes it, he was basically a sugar baby. He cut things off with Melissa when he dated his last ex July 2023 to January 2024, but hooked up with Melissa after breaking up with his ex Nina. The way Harry describes Melissa makes her sound a little crazy. For lack of a better word, she would write him emails, send long texts, and leave voicemails for him. Harry's birthday was last Saturday and we were hanging out with his friends. A little after midnight, he received a phone call but didn't pick up. He said it was his mom who was calling. I thought it was strange that his mom would call him that late and that he didn't pick up. I asked him the next day if he called his mom back yet, but he told me it was Melissa who called him. I became annoyed because Nina, his ex, also texted him happy birthday. Nina still has feelings for Harry and has also been sending him texts throughout our entire relationship. He would either ignore Nina or would give really short responses. I'm not a jealous or insecure type of person, but I became upset because I knew if the situation was reversed, Harry would be upset at me if an ex kept texting me and I didn't block them. Basically, I became upset out of principle, if that makes sense. Because I felt like Harry was being a hypocrite. I thought to myself, why does he expect me to block my previous partners if he hadn't taken the initiative to do the same? So I ended up asking Harry to block both Nina and Melissa. He agreed to do so, but I was still annoyed that I had to ask him to do this, when I had cut things off with Jake willingly the day after I met Harry. While Harry was sleeping, I looked through his phone to make sure he blocked them. I ended up finding texts of Harry sexting Melissa about a month after we met. We technically weren't officially dating at the time, but we were definitely exclusive and had talked about being exclusive. I clearly remember that night he sexted her. I was asleep because I had work the next day, but he went out drinking with his friends and was drunk. His messages said things like, "I want to fuck you right now," and "You want me to fuck you like last time," but when he was sober the next day, he stopped responding to Melissa. In early June, Harry sent 2 messages to Melissa, but it showed up as unsent on his phone. I'm assuming he drunk texted her again, but I'm not sure if he unsent the messages when he was drunk or sober. I confronted him about what I saw. He took full responsibility for what he did and wasn't even mad that I looked through his phone. He explained he had always been insecure and upset at me sleeping with Jake the day we met. I agree that it's weird to sleep with 2 people in the same day, but I slept with Jake before I met Harry. When he texted Melissa in April, he said it was because he was drunk and really upset about the whole Jake situation. He said he has no idea what he sent to Melissa in June or why he texted her, but he's guessing he was upset at me when he was drunk that day. Harry explained that all of his behaviors came from his insecurities and wanting to have a backup plan in case I ever left him for someone better. He said this was the reason he never blocked Melissa, combined with the fact that she would buy him things. He said that although he was texting Melissa those things when he was drunk, he didn't actually mean them. He never texted her when he was sober. Story: spouse is a chronic complainer. He does not see it this way. What is normal? I'm 33 years old. Spouse is 31 years old. Spouse complains about lack of sleep constantly. He's a chronic complainer but doesn't see it this way. What is normal? For context, we have an almost 3-year-old and my husband works from home. Since our child has been born, he's been the primary caretaker because I leave to a medical office Monday through Friday for work and am home by 4 p.m. to take over. He works overnight. He absolutely refuses outside help even now with his mom who's recently moved into town. He essentially has to function off of at best 3 to 6 hours of broken up sleep spread across pre-shift and post-shift. I absolutely get it. I've acknowledged how crappy this schedule is and continue to make effort to provide him relief here and there, like leaving early from work, taking PTO, etc. And genuinely, when I know for a fact he didn't sleep well or had a terrible day where he has to function off of the bare minimum, I don't care if he says a complaint or 2 about being exhausted. However, this is an everyday thing. It is the theme of our conversation 80% of the time. If it's bath time or having family time, it's an ever-revolving wheel of very negative ick about grocery shopping. I'm exhausted. And usually his complaints tie to our child. He woke up too early this morning and I'm too exhausted, then rants about how he doesn't know how he's going to function for work. Or it's I couldn't sleep well because of their tantrum. The big picture here is that the reason why he's not getting enough sleep is because of our child's schedule. Just like any parent. But to complain about it nearly all day and all night long. Last winter he spent the entire 3 months complaining on how cold it was, begging every night for the summer to get here. He complained nearly every single day and night how it affected his back, and he'd at least once a day make a comment about praying to the God for summer to get here. We live in a southern state, so once it got here it was hot. What does he end up doing? Complains every day how hot it is. How miserable he is. How he can't work in the garage well because of how hot it gets in there. He works in the garage to take meetings so he doesn't wake up our child, and now I've had a bad taste in my mouth because, didn't you ask for this? He's also extremely unpleasant to be around in the state where he's in his complaining mode. I want to know, am I just being insensitive? He says that his entire childhood family did this. They'd just complain to each other as if it was a fun pastime hobby or something. In my household growing up, it was seen extremely negatively. You'd come off ungrateful, as a non-doer, and nut up shut up type household. I need some desperate insight. I have tried the shoulder or solution. His answer to that was he never wants a solution. He just wants to complain. Is chronic complaining totally normal? Again. He doesn't even use the word complaining. He sees it as a fun pastime and a way to be supported. Story: my boyfriend, 25M, is not who I, 25F, thought he was. How do I move on from this? I don't even know where to start. I feel like my whole worldview has changed. First of all, I know that every here starts with my boyfriend is the most lovely person. And I thought the same. But just so you don't think I'm completely delusional, every person who has met my boyfriend or heard about some of the stuff he's done for me have loved him. He's usually very attentive, caring, plans nice surprises, emotionally supportive, affectionate, etc., etc. Genuinely felt like a book character written by a woman. My mom loves him too. It all started when he got demotivated and then very depressed because he wasn't doing well in his career. I was worried about him and our future TBH, so I was encouraging him to apply to jobs, etc., to which he said he would, but still have very little motivation. Anyways, long story short is I was constantly reminding him and asking if he's been applying, and I guess he got stressed out because he basically lied to me and said he was applying to stuff when he didn't. He lied about this a few times over a couple of weeks. He knows it's wrong, so he's not justifying it, but he explained in his brain he thought by not disappointing me and saying he already did something would give him motivation to actually do it. Anyways, I thought this was very out of character, so I decided to forgive after a bit of arguing, etc., but in the back of my head I felt like something was off and I couldn't trust him, so I dug through his phone, which for the past 10 years I've had access to. He shared all his pins and passwords to me. While digging, I found a conversation this happened 6 years ago with a friend who was a girl. They discussed some sexual stuff, not sexting, but more like I like this, and later things like, I would like to do this with my GF, or we're both switches. But she also divulges quite a lot of sexual stories. He doesn't react a lot to them. She goes, I've shared a lot of secrets, now it's your turn. And he shares that when he was young, way before he met me, he experienced a hand job from another guy. I've literally never heard this story, and I just feel very betrayed. I've had chats like these with female friends and gay guys, but I don't think it's ever something I've shared with a straight guy friend. 1:1. I get that he made the existence of me very plain, but just feels odd. I feel like boundaries were completely crossed in telling other people things that I don't know. Feels like emotional cheating. Anyway, I'm going to confront him and very likely leave. But I just want perspectives. Or like advice from people that have had something similar happen to them. I know it's 6 years ago, but I feel like I don't know him anymore. I'm so perplexed because this doesn't match with the person I thought I knew at all. Shy, reserved, very loving, telling me he misses me every day, writes love letters, gets giddy when seeing me kind of person. How can you fake being so in love for the last 10 years? Any pearls of wisdom very greatly appreciated. Boyfriend of 10 years spoke about sexual topics not on a sexting way with a female friend. And spoke about a sexual encounter from before he met me that I didn't know about. I'm likely going to leave, but how do I deal with this? Any other perspectives? Story: the guy that I'm in 24F seeing is starting to act weird and I need help out of this situation. I think I've made a mistake. I have gotten myself into a really bad situation. I was desperate for what I thought was the type of love I needed to feel normal, but now I want absolutely nothing to do with this man or romantic relationships anymore in general. I do not look like an adult. It's genes. My whole family looks way younger than their actual age, with people thinking my mom is my sister sometimes. I look underaged, and have had people guess anywhere between 14 to 18. When I was in Florida about a month ago by myself for vacation, I even had people asking me where my mom was, and the security people in the airport pulled me aside to ask me if I was traveling with anyone. I am not particularly short, but have a very skinny build, ridiculous baby face, and braces, which doesn't help with everything. Nobody can ever guess that I am my real age. I try to hide it most of the time honestly because I'm starting to feel a certain way about getting older. I am not saying this to brag, but it is relevant to what I'm about to explain. Because of how I look, I usually only get hit on by two types of guys. The first group are obvious teenage boys who think I'm their age, and the second is older, usually middle-aged men for whatever reason. There is no in-between. Rarely does any guy my age actually flirt with me, probably because they think I'm younger. This used to really bother me because I am not interested in teenage boys for obvious reasons: age, maturity difference, and because they scare me tbh, and older men who hit on me in that context creep me out. No matter what I did, it wouldn't change. I tried to dress more sexy, but that's not me at all. I don't like dressing sexy and it makes me look awkward. I have a very particular, girly way of dressing that involves a lot of pink and pastel colors. Probably doesn't help, but I can't help what styles I'm attracted to. About 7 months ago, while I was out at the library, a guy approached me while I was sitting at a table reading. He started flirting with me, asking me about what I was reading, and said he thought I was very cute. We ended up exchanging numbers. I admit I was a bit flattered by the attention, and he was cute, so I thought, why not, I'll call him just to see what he's like. He looked to be maybe in his early 30s, which isn't too old for me to date. I called him the next day, and we started hanging out a lot. He took me on dates, and we went on walks, and to other nice places. I found out his age on the fourth date. He is actually in his mid-40s. We didn't label ourselves as anything at first. Despite his age, he was really nice to be around. He didn't demoralize me for my more childlike interests, or way of clothing, or anything. He actually would buy me clothes that matched my aesthetic: stuffed animals, Disney things. Yes, I'm a Disney girl, and called me his baby, little girl. I thought it was just a cute little pet name. I didn't feel weird around him, I actually felt like there was finally someone who understood me. But everything changed when he found out my age about 3 weeks ago. Yes, I never mentioned it, because he never asked, and didn't seem to care. He started making these weird comments about my age. How when I eventually turned 25 everything goes downhill from there. He keeps asking me if I would stay the same for him, his baby girl. He's cold but affectionate at the same time, which confuses me. Now he wants me to do all of these role-playing things, and to call him daddy, which I've never done. I'll be getting my braces off soon. I was really excited about this because I've had them in my mouth for years, but he seemed disappointed, and said that maybe I should prolong my appointments, keep scheduling out, because they're a part of me that he really likes. I am starting to get a weird feeling about him, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. I feel like maybe I want to stop dating hanging around him, but we've been together so much that even when I tell myself not to respond any more to his calls, I always end up calling him anyway. If I don't respond after so many hours, he'll show up to my house, which is bad, because my mom I still live with her knows nothing about him, and I don't want her to find out about him. And even though he makes sometimes hurtful comments about my age, I'm attached to the way he's made me feel. How he's made me feel normal for my other interests, and liked. I have never been in a relationship before, and I thought I wanted one. But I honestly don't want to be bothered by men anymore, at least right now. I feel stuck and torn. I'm sick of being in a tug-of-war between his coldness and affection. I told him yesterday that I needed a break, but he blew up at me. I don't think he'll leave me alone, and I don't know what else to do. I feel like life won't be the same without him, but I also feel so exhausted, and I don't think this is what relationships are supposed to feel like. Is there a way that I could talk to him to make him understand my perspective? I'm thinking maybe we can still be semi-distant friends who occasionally hang out if he stops making comments about my age and my appearance, which is honestly not flattering to be told I look like a little girl. I'm trying not to get my mom or brother involved, who I know will start seeing red and make the situation worse. I am starting to feel weird about the guy I've been dating. He made me feel understood and appreciated at first, but since he found out my age, is starting to act cold toward me, make comments about my weight, and calling me a little girl. I'm trying to cut down contact without things escalating and need some help. I have no experience in relationships. Story: at an impasse with girlfriend about her education. What do I do? 26M and 26F. My girlfriend is really upset about her choice of schools and wants my help, but didn't apply and doesn't seem to be putting in effort. What do I do? My girlfriend is bright and driven, but deeply depressed and prone to shutdowns. She dropped out of art school as an upper junior a long time ago in the midst of family and personal chaos. Now, 6 years later, she's completed an associate's degree and wants to finish a bachelor's. The problem is that she doesn't like the only school that took her a high-quality but less exciting local public college. The problem isn't her grades. She graduated summa cum laude with glowing recommendations for multiple professors. I told her while she was applying that a full-time job plus a full course load and an internship would make it near impossible to make a good application anywhere. She chose to continue full throttle anyway and missed nearly every deadline. She specifically chose not to apply to the local Ivy League institution because it would be embarrassing, in her words. Now she is in tears every single day as she feels her potential is being wasted. It doesn't help that said public college has horrible bureaucracy and has messed up her credit evaluation. For the record, I agree that she could get into a better institution if she put her mind to it. She has been in deeper moments of crisis shouting at me and telling me I didn't help enough, but I just am not sure what I should have done without her giving herself the space to work on it. A few times I've suggested applying for the coming spring, but she just starts self-deprecating and shutting that down. She begs for help and accuses me of getting in the way of her dreams, but then turns down every specific offer of help. I am feeling really drained. I want to know what personal changes I can make to stop feeling so drained and support her better. When I began writing this, she was on her way out to the gym. She stopped right at the front door to turn around and complain about the school situation. This escalated into telling me how ugly she thought she was. I tried reassuring her, and she opened her phone and started going through pictures of herself from years ago to illustrate her point. This escalated into calling herself a failure with nowhere to go in the world, which then escalated into throwing her phone and making suicide jokes. Finally, I couldn't take it and had a panic attack, at which point her mood changed and she began kissing me all over, at which I could only cringe, and then left for the gym as if nothing had happened. This all took over 3 hours. There are of course many sides to every story. Here are the ways I give her a hard time. I am a teacher and the generic book-smart type. She has significant trauma with school, and especially with her father, who used to shake her and call her stupid. She really doesn't like my intellectual show-offy manner. I try to minimize this and talking about work in general, but I know that I haven't done enough. I could certainly be a better listener and better at responding to her when she spirals. I know that I am supposed to remain calm and reassuring, but it does hurt. The result is that I am at first robotic and then despondent. I just still haven't found the best way to be supportive. I myself have rather low self-confidence. I know this is really unattractive and not very healthy to be around. There is surely much more that I don't see about myself. How should I support her? To what extent should I be helping her? I can't start these applications for her, that would be a breach of ethics. But should I just accidentally do so anyway? This is important to me, and I want to make sure she has a good outcome. Story: to support my partner or walk away. Me 44 years old and him 47 years old have been dating for over 2 years. The first 14 months we lived in our own houses and saw each other 3 times a week as we lived a 60 minutes drive away. We were really good at planning and making sure we had quality time and great balance, having our own social life and felt included in each other's lives. Life was great. I moved in with him for 7 months, as sold my house and was waiting on my new house to be built. The plan was to lodge at his, suck up the 2-hour round commute to work. If it was good, then he would move into my new house, which was only 20 minutes from each of our workplaces. First 3 months was good, then it wasn't great. We ended up living like roommates. He spent a lot of time in the pub or playing his computer. Slept a lot, was moody and stopped spend quality time with me and helping with chores. I missed my social life and closeness to friends. I did say he looked depressed, but he denied it. I moved into my house and we split up. We got back together a month later. He said that he was depressed and work stress was high and sought help. Said he was only sleeping 4 hours a night. He couldn't cope and only way to cope was to shut down. We agreed boundaries and ground rules. It's been 3 months and we are struggling to spend time together more than 2 days a week. He said he is so tired and work is crazy, so we are not doing much and he falls asleep lots. We had plans with friends over weekends, so doing really spend much time there. He said he feels that there is something wrong with him but will not visit a doctor and is still unable to sleep. Says he doesn't want to be ill. Last night he was supposed to come to mine at normal time. I got dinner ready and texted him. No response. Called, no response. I ate dinner alone. 3 hours later, he called and apologized, saying he fell asleep on his sofa and only woke up. I can believe this as he is exhausted. But I did express how unhappy I was at him, as I feel he is not putting effort in. Just feeling that past patterns are appearing and he will shut me out. He says he is not and is trying but feels so ill. I have said he needs to go to the doctor, as he had been saying for 4 months. Said if he doesn't go by next week we can't continue, as the overarching theme is him not being well and he needs to take ownership, as I can't cope with this long term. So was I right? His illness, depression, is affecting our relationship. Any advice, as I am supporting and understanding, but he needs to get help to start getting better. Partner is unwell but is not seeking help. It's affecting our relationship and my compassion is going. Story: I don't want a relationship with my sister, what do I do? My brother is associating with our half-sister, I don't care to, and it's becoming uncomfortable. I'm typically pretty loquacious, so I'll try to cut it down. I am 38 years old, grew up with both my parents, and 36 years old my younger brother. My dad was married before my mom and had 2 kids, a son and a daughter, both of whom are about 10 years older than me. Not super relevant, but my parents divorced when I was in college. My understanding is that my dad wasn't perfect, but his ex was vindictive and fed my half-siblings a bunch of crap so they'd hate him, which worked for a while. Eventually, my half-bro reconciled. I guess my half-sis did to some extent, because I met her and her husband when I was a teen. It was easy to form a friendship of sorts with my half-brother because we had similar interests. I think his sister never fully came around to my dad, which, whatever. Reader's Digest version is that I have a fine relationship with half-bro and, for most of my life, no contact with his sister. Recently, my younger brother got all 4 of us together. It was a fine time. I enjoy hanging out with my brothers, and the half-sister seemed fine enough, besides lightly shit-talking my dad, despite not talking to him for decades. Her son was super nice and I thought we all had a good time. At the end of the night, I was completely blindsided by her suggesting we should have a heart-to-heart of sorts. I know my younger brother had a convo with her about. I honestly don't know what, but anyway. I have no investment in that relationship. I absolutely meant no offense, but I told her I didn't feel it was necessary, but we could, if it would make her happy. I definitely admit that that seems a bit harsh, but I didn't intend it to be. I have no problem with her, but I also don't have the emotional and mental bandwidth right now to try to form a new relationship, let alone one I don't care about. And I don't feel compelled to put myself out for it. I'm nearly 40, she's never made an attempt at a relationship before, and that's fine. I only mean to say that she didn't spend her life pining for a relationship with her half-sister, and that absolutely does not hurt my feelings. She was evidently very offended. My younger brother invited me to another gathering, and while I'd love to go, I don't want to deal with her. She's rather dramatic and I anticipate an issue with us both being there. My ideal scenario is getting her to understand that we are basically strangers, and I like hanging out with her, but we're not family and I don't care for us to be. Kind of makes the gathering complicated. For what it's worth, I understand how this sounds, but I hold no animosity towards her. It is truly complete indifference, and I have too much on my plate right now to feign caring. So, I'm not sure how to proceed with the invite. Story: how to tell if my 25F partner, 25M, is emotionally or verbally abusive. I am 25 years old and am starting to think that my relationship with 25 years old my boyfriend of about 1 year is not just toxic but abusive. He's always been quick to anger and a little jealous, but recently he's said and done things that are making me question my perceptions of myself and the relationship. I called a female friend recently who I hadn't spoken to in months, and we spoke for about 30 to 40 minutes catching up. He acted weird on the phone call, and afterwards he exploded. He accused me of talking to her about other men and intentionally trying to cover the conversation. He said I locked the door to the bathroom, I was peeing. He said I turned the bedroom fan on so he couldn't hear. We turned the fan on to go to sleep, and it was nearly 10 p.m. He said I left the room to hide the conversation. He was already in bed and I was trying to be respectful because he wakes up 3 hours before me. He refused to listen to my explanation. The next day he apologized profusely over text, which is a pattern in our relationship. Outbursts followed by long apologies the next day. Today, I worked a 10-hour shift while he was at home. I did a 50-hour week as my boss was out sick. I get home and I'm talking to him while opening the fridge and he goes past me and I accidentally shut the door on his hand that has a blister on it. Although his hand was fine, he turns to me and screams, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" in my face. I apologized and said although I was looking, I wasn't really seeing as my brain is fried and I'm tired. He proceeded to go off and then was even angrier when I was upset that he screamed in my face. He refused to apologize for that. That argument then derailed despite me trying to end it multiple times because it was no longer productive. We were just going in loops. I tried to turn and watch TV and he stood in front of the TV. I recorded part of our conversation. We're in a one-party consent state and in those 2 recordings, he called me a narcissist, a pathological liar, autistic, and an asshole. I want to upload those so people can hear his voice and the context because I'm really feeling insane right now, but I'm unsure if that's against this sub's rules. At one point, he realized I was recording and took my phone and threw it on the floor in the other room. I got up and got it and he seemed to back off from that once I told him me recording was legal in this state and that if he took my phone again, I would consider myself to be in actual danger and would leave. I've been thinking about leaving him, but it's hard as we live together. Now, I'm worried that I actually need to figure something out and quickly because I'm worried this is going to derail. He claims to love me and that I mean the world to him, but I once told him I wanted to break up and I'll never forget his response, "You deserve whatever I do honestly." My 25 years old, boyfriend 25 years old, and I fight a lot but I'm unsure if it's starting to become abusive. Story, I, F, 30, don't know how to cope with my boyfriend, M, 41, of 2 years and his inability to grasp reality. I'm 30 years old, struggling to cope with what I believe is my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, lack of a full sense of reality. To provide some context, this all started about 2 years ago, 3 months after we started dating, when he had an episode of acute psychosis and committed himself under the Baker Act. He was afraid of people breaking in the windows and thought someone had broken into his roommate's room, so he broke down his roommate's door. Since then, he has been functioning relatively well and appears to be of sound mind in casual conversations. However, he has occasionally mentioned that he still sees shadow beings but has learned to live with them. He doesn't want to discuss this further because he fears being labeled crazy. He also reaches conclusions that make no sense and refuses to listen to me or accept any evidence that contradicts his beliefs. The most notable and persistent example is his belief that I supply weed to the local dealer I have bought small amounts from before. Despite having no reason to think this and me offering proof and even sharing my GPS location, he refuses to believe me. He doesn't believe almost anything I say, which is stressful and odd. When I was recently in the hospital, he didn't believe what I told him the doctor said either. I'm fed up with being treated this way and constantly being accused of lying. I've told him to stay away multiple times, which is why I referred to him as my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. However, he shows up anyway, acting as if it's a normal day. If I tell him to leave, he refuses and just sits on the couch, knowing I can't physically make him leave. Recently, he's been talking about missing his family out of state. I've encouraged him to go be with them, as it seems he takes out a lot of his negative emotions on me and might be happier there. But he responds that he'll do what he wants, either staying or going, and won't be chased off by me. I really don't know how to cope with any of this. I'm 30 years old, struggling with my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, disconnection from reality. After an episode of acute psychosis 2 years ago, he still sees shadow beings and holds irrational beliefs, like thinking I supply weed to a local dealer. He refuses to believe anything I say, even about my recent hospital visit. Despite telling him to stay away, he shows up and refuses to leave. He misses his out-of-state family, and I've encouraged him to go, but he insists on doing what he wants and won't be chased off. I don't know how to cope with this situation. I neglected to mention that his mother has been diagnosed as bipolar, so I often wonder if any of this behavior from him are symptoms of bipolar. I have attempted to bring this up to him, but he shuts me down and won't even consider the possibility. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.